Good evening. On behalf of Southern Oregon Climate Action Now, welcome to our 2020 interview series with candidates for the Oregon House, Senate, and County Commissioner. My name is Bob Kaplan, and I will be your moderator for this interview. As a tax-exempt 501c3 nonprofit organization, SOCAN cannot endorse candidates, but we can offer constituents information on where the candidates stand on issues related to our mission. The focus of these interviews is therefore limited to questions about climate and the environment. All candidates for the general election have been invited to participate in these interviews. Some have accepted and others have declined. Today, we will be speaking with Hugh Palcic, candidate for Oregon Senate District 28. Thank you, Hugh, for joining us for this session. The format is simple. We will have 2 minutes for candidate introductions, followed by 9 questions, each read by me. The candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and then 2 minutes for closing remarks. To ensure a fair and balanced interview, all candidates receive the questions 7 days in advance, and will be posed exactly the same questions. Also, to ensure fairness, there will be no follow-up questions. Okay, Hugh Palcic, candidate for Oregon Senate District 28, welcome and thank you for joining us. Hugh,
Thank you, Bob.
You may take 2 minutes for your introductory remarks.
No problem. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much, and thank you, SOCAN, for the opportunity to speak tonight. Myself, I am Hugh Palcic. I'm running for Senate District 28. I am not necessarily running against an opponent as much as I'm running for protecting this district. It's aptly designated as Senate District 28. Out of 30 senatorial districts, it kind of ranks there and has been riding the bottom of the pile for quite some time. It's been in the hands of one party for 32 years straight. I'm intending to change that, and I have plans to do so. I believe change is necessary for this district. Clearly, they do not have a voice in Salem, and I wish to present them with that voice. I have a record of delivering results as general manager of Sun River, as the community of Sun River, actually steeped in environmental principles in Sun River as well. So I believe I have a lot to offer, not just to Senate District 28, but to the state of Oregon. And I look forward to a vigorous 80 days left ahead of us. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to our first question. The increasing droughts we have been facing have resulted in frequent and substantial water shortages. Would you please explain what you think state government and agencies should do to address the increasingly difficult problems of water availability and water rights?
So first off, thanks, Bob. I think that droughts are by no means going away anytime soon. I think climate change, I think you're going to see even more over time. It's a recurring item as it is right now. Water itself is a very complex issue. I know that from chairing the Deschutes County Planning Commission, where we deal with water rights and junior rights and then senior rights, and how they're actually in reverse order, unfortunately, as to who's a commercial farmer and who is more of a hobby rancher, if you will. So it is difficult. There are a lot of tricky corners to this issue, but that requires a lot of effort and involvement from all stakeholders, and that requires bringing everyone to the table for consensus. I think for the state, we're looking at a carrot and stick approach. I think we need to look at alternative farming practices. I think we need to look at water efficiency and incentivizing some of those elements so that people have a reason to do them in the first place. I also think that water rights, the discussion around it, needs to really kind of coalesce around compromise. I think we need to revisit our water rights and look at them together and find out what's in the best interest of all of us as a whole. Because if we don't do that soon, we're going to be in some real serious trouble. I don't want to get too carried away, but in all reality, in a quarter century from now, are we looking at becoming, let's say, Reading as far as a climate for Southern Oregon? And that worries me.
Okay, thank you. So Oregon's Forest Management Practices Act has not been revised for decades. Do you think it should be revised? And if so, how should it be revised?
That's a good question. I do believe it should be modernized. I think that from a state level, this is where leadership really comes into play. I think we need to assemble all stakeholders of the team. Again, I work towards consensus throughout, but I think we need to actually take that book off the shelf and actually go page by page. What works now? What are the practices that we're looking at? And what needs to be fine-tuned? And for a couple examples, when we look at, for instance, harvest unit sizes and, how to actually handle some of the older growth, not old growth, but older growth as far as retention for handling some of our forest fires that we have rattling through the areas for certain. How do we handle excess slash? This is an issue in Deschutes County that we wrestle with a lot in forested lands. You'll end up with what looks like pickup sticks everywhere, and how we actually address a lot of the slash, because that really is dealing with a great deal of our next fire issues that we have. Also, herbicide and the spraying and how that affects our streams and lakes needs to be addressed as well. So yes, I do think that we need to take a hard look at it. That's a sound practice regardless of what the issue is, to actually revisit our standards and practices. So I would look to do so, most definitely. I'd hope to be a part of that.
Great. Thank you. Oregon's Wildlife Management Plan has included removal of wolves from the state endangered species list and a proposal to allow bear hunting along the wild and scenic Road River. Do you think it is important to conserve Oregon's bears, endangered wolves, and other wildlife species at risk? Please explain why and identify where this ranks in your list of priorities.
Well, I fear that, unfortunately, I think there's been a divergence from the science here, and I think politics have come into play a little bit. Some emotion in the decision making as to what's listed and what's not. Just because some species is not listed does not mean it's open season either. They all serve a purpose in our ecosystem, and I think that that's important to remember. It's high value to the ecosystem for me. And I think that studies have proven that, actually peer-reviewed studies have proven that we're at somewhere near like 5% when we talk about wolves in particular of what could be supported in Oregon. Now that means we have to balance that against the backdrop of ranchers and farmers. It certainly is an issue, and I think they need to be part of the conversation as to how we move forward on that as well. So if you haven't figured it out by question 3, I'm somewhat of a consensus builder. I may not be experts on many things, but I'm an expert on bringing people together and having those discussions. And I think this is another area where that needs to happen. So yes, I honestly fear that politics has gotten in the way of science once again.
Okay. Thank you. Given that some segments of Oregon's population suffer more extensively than most from adverse climate impacts and toxic pollution, how should we invest in correcting health and other social inequities as part of our response to climate change?
Well, I think the state legislature actually got off to it was a bumpy start, but a start nonetheless in attempting to pull cap and invest across the board. I think we need to redouble our efforts when it comes to that. And then in addition to that, I think we need to review our land use laws to strengthen and introduce mitigation requirements specific to development and infrastructure projects. There's a true dichotomy, especially in urban areas and urban settings, as to how people are living and the effects that are placed upon them. You know, Tree City, USA, it's a nice title to have. Sun River, Oregon has Tree City, USA for many, many years, which I'm proud of. But, you know, honestly, the more trees, the more carbon sequestration, and the more trees and green spaces that we include, especially in urban areas, we actually look at lower air temperatures and air quality changes just in the same city from one area to another. So I think there's a lot that can be done with placemaking and planning. So land use is going to play a major role in this as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our fifth question. How do you think the state should promote and invest in clean jobs and a green economy as part of our efforts to reboot the economy following the COVID-19 crisis?
Well, let's start out. I think this needs to be a high priority, especially as we emerge from COVID-19. I really do. You know, I hopefully will be representing a rural district here, 5 counties in all. And, you know, districts such as mine, really, you know, items like rural broadband could play a major, major factor. When you talk about the number of trips on the road, and telemedicine and distance learning that would come into play just in that one item. So I see that a real focus towards renewable energy. I also think that, that our district, the District 28, is poised for that. That truly we could be a power broker. And I'm not talking about energy. I'm talking about power in the state as a power broker, if played right. So I would look to also incentivize companies in the private sector to go green, conversion of fleet vehicles and so forth, charging station installations. I think by garnering support from the private sector, it's only going to help bring us all to the conclusion we need to make, that this is a direction we need to go. So bringing the private sector along as part of it will be very, very important. And we have to look to incentivize them to do so.
Hey, thank you. Given the consensus among climate scientists that global warming is a reality and human activity is largely responsible, what do you think are Oregon's top 3 or 4 priorities to address the climate crisis?
So that's a great question, because you can go down a lot of corners with that pretty quick. So I'm going to be a little bit going to take this to a higher level for a second. I think that for starters, we need to really unify, and I'm talking this coastally speaking. I'm talking about our entire West Coast working as a region to unify and lead not just a nation, but a globe, if you will. And it can be done. And I think we need to have a very consistent message and a consistent approach, state by state, in kind of lockstep in order to make that happen. I think we need to, for our state, we need to double down and really reinvest or invest for the first time, I'll say, in renewable energy sources. I think we have to actually wean ourselves off of carbon fuels. I think that that's something that's necessary as we move forward. And then, you know, we have to find creative ways along the way to include the private sector, as I mentioned earlier. I think that that's important. You know, a lot of times we often roll up our sleeves, grab the biggest stick and start, you know, let's tax, let's do this. I think we can find ways to create the same kind of reaction, or a better reaction, if you will, more commitment to a greener path by incentives. So I think there's a combination that needs to be there. And then lastly, I really think we need to do, we have to be better at a public relations, for lack of a better term. Our messaging needs to be there. We need to celebrate our successes, and we need to be able to counter any counter narratives that come along the way from special interests.
Thank you.
No problem.
Do you support Governor Brown's Executive Order 2004 establishing an Oregon Climate Action Plan? What elements of the executive order do you think should be strengthened, and how?
Well, I do. I do support the governor's order in this case. I think it was a bold move and a step in the right direction. I think it underscores um, perhaps some legislative frustration along the way, but hey, we need to get moving. You know, standing still is falling further behind, and I can say that for my district as well. I think we need to look at our investment in wildfire mitigation, especially in our region. That is a major, major piece, and statewide hazard mapping will come alongside that. We have to look at hardening of homes and making sure that when we have the wildland urban interface that we're wrestling with, those are serious challenges. I think this is almost a prerequisite, the hardening of homes. It has to come along with that. And then lastly, I think we have to find ways to really put our forests to work for us. And what I mean by that, it's great to talk about healthy forests, it's talk about thinning and so forth that we need to do, but I also look at the carbon sequestration that can happen through a healthy forest. So I mentioned that earlier. I would look to incentivize even private property owners to not necessarily abandon their private forests that they have, maybe even show them how that could actually be part of the solution along the way.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll stick with fire. Fire ecologists argue that climate change is the single greatest contributor to wildfires. What do you think should be done in the short term and long term to address the problem of fire and smoke bedeviling Southern Oregon?
Bedeviling is just the right word. And I can tell you, the smoke and fire, first of all, smoke can be 50 miles away and still affect a great deal of your economy, your way of life, and your health for what you're dealing with. I know that firsthand as general manager for a community such as Sun River. In fact, that's one of the reasons, we talked about a rainy day fund we were coming up with. How can we self-insure our community and our economy in the event that we have an economic downturn? We'll go figure we have an economic downturn. But realistically, we started calling it not a rainy day fund, but the Smoky Day Fund, jokingly. And but it really underscored the issues at hand. So it is a major, major piece. It affects our economy, affects our health, and our quality of life overall. I think that we need a plan that is strategic as far as ladder fuel reduction, and we have to be strategic as to how we handle even our controlled burns so that we do limit the smoke intrusion on a health level and also on an economic level. I also think I think you're going to see biomass fuels and the ability to actually work on woody mass fuel projects becoming more feasible. There was a day when solar panels were not feasible, economically feasible. And I think you're going to see the same thing happen, which actually in this category that I think will really benefit us as we move forward. So, you plan for the best, scenario, you try to do everything you can, I guess, and move forward that way. And Sun River, we've taken those steps. I think we also, as a state, need to work our relationship with the federal government on that so that we're hand in glove with them.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
And then our final question. Methane is a greenhouse gas 86 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Given the inevitable emissions of methane that would result from the proposed Pembina Jordan Cove LNG export facility and pipeline, please explain where you stand on the project and why you reached that conclusion.
Well, I think you just outlined why I stand on this project as a hard no, but there are other reasons, and I'll elaborate quickly as I can. You speak of your intro really kind of sounded it off, but fundamentally we're going in the wrong direction in doing these types of these future energy needs that we're talking about. I also see little to no benefit for those living very close to the pipeline or the port, specifically for this. So, and that's an important piece because what I'm about to say, it really plays into. When we talk about taking lands that are privately owned, so now I'm into land use for a moment, you're talking about eminent domain and the taking of land. Well, that needs to be for the purpose uh, that would be of benefit to those that the land is being taken from. And right here, just on its face, this project does not qualify under that, at least in my opinion. So for all those reasons, and then without even going too much further, but the environmental risks alone of not only installing a project like this, but maintaining it in long term really certainly does not come to the point of outweighing, I guess the benefits would not outweigh that kind of project, in my opinion. So no, I'm a hard no on this. I think that recent efforts about NEPA, as far as rolling back some of the voice that people have to be involved, really concerns me. And that means, hopefully I'll be in a position in the state Senate to actually make a little noise about that and actually point people in the right direction, because I think this will have horrible, in my opinion, consequences for years to come if it's seen to fruition.
All right. Thank you. So that concludes our questions, and now you may take up to 2 minutes for closing remarks.
Well, I appreciate it, and this shows just how I guess I guess I'm not a professional politician, because I'm not going to sit here and try to take all 2 minutes of this time to tell you how wonderful I am and all the things. I can tell you I look at politics as somewhat of a dirty word. I consider myself a public servant. I've tried to do that in everything, tried to be involved and make a difference. I would not be here in front of you today doing what I'm doing. It has nothing to do with ego. It has everything to do with a direction, a failed direction. And I believe if I didn't have the abilities to turn it around, I wouldn't step forward to do this. So I'm confident in what I'm doing. I believe in it, and I have a track record to create these results. So I know I can if given the chance. And I honestly, I really appreciate SoCan giving me the opportunity to at least get my word out there. So thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you. This concludes our interview with Hugh Palcic, candidate for Oregon Senate District 28. Thank you very much, Hugh, for joining us, to you for viewing, and to Carmen Profit for driving the technology that makes this possible.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.